can't handle it. You can't handle it. Show yourself. Don't wait for them to hold the candle. Time to it's your thing. It's your thing. To be the talker. Meant to be broken. Ooh, yeah. Nothing is funky. Raise the roof to your desire. Ain't nothing is funky. You got to take yourself higher. Doesn't need another minute for you to do your thing. There ain't nothing this funky. There ain't nobody ready for the stuff you bring.
Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Purple Notes Unveiled podcast. I'm Richard Cole, the Amari in Amari Communications, and this is a brand new show that will talk about the music and artistry of Prince, different associated artists like The Time, Vanity 6, Sheila E., as well as albums, movies, videos, unboxings. There'll be everything within the Purple musical singularity on this show, and I'm very excited to do this. I know it's been a while since we've done like the Amari Purple Talk podcast, which was the original podcast that would talk about all things Prince, but this is a brand new show. You can listen to it on your favorite podcast platform. And there is also a video version that you can see exclusively on Patreon. So become a Patreon supporter. And there will be segments from each episode that will be on YouTube. So don't forget to hit like, subscribe, hit the notification bell to keep up on all of that content as well. All right, so with that out of the way, let's go ahead and start with our main topic of the show. And the main topic this week is how to make a good, or actually how to make a great Prince Netflix documentary. All right, so for quite a number of years, we know that there is a Prince documentary in production. It will be shown on Netflix. However, there has been no official announcement from Netflix, no trailer, no announcement of a release date as of yet. The Prince estate, they don't seem to be excited about this documentary for whatever reason. They're not. I don't know if it's a money thing or this was done under a different regime of the estate. I guess we'll eventually get information about that at some point, or full details at some point. But apparently the Netflix documentary is going full steam ahead. Like I said, don't know what its state of completion is. Hopefully we'll get something in 2024. That would be cool. But like I said, no official announcement from Netflix or the Prince estate as of yet. So with that, there has been a lot of speculation as to what would be included in this documentary. I'm assuming it's going to be in multiple parts, hopefully like a 7-8 episode, of maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours each of content. We do know the director is Ezra Edelman. He is known for the award-winning documentary O.J. Simpson Made in America. That is a documentary that I have watched, although I have not actually watched the conclusion. But what I have seen, I think he's capable of the job. He's also done some 30 for 30 episodes for ESPN. The most notable is the one about the Los Angeles Lakers and Boston Celtics rivalry. That's another great one to check out. So I do think he's capable of it. I think that's the right pick. But we do know that originally Ava DuVernay was supposed to direct, but fell out over, I guess, creative differences. So that's basically all that we know at this point. But again, what's going to be included? What is it going to focus on? Is it going to focus on the artistry? Is it going to focus on the human being? Is it going to sensationalize, I guess some of the stereotypes and the myths about Prince that have, snowballed over the years? Will it sensationalize his tragic ending and not focus on so much on the artistry, or or just him as a human being? That he was human and is great and is talented and is so much he has given us. Falls prey to weaknesses just like any one of us could. But anyway, one of the things that I wanted to talk about on this particular episode is what I think should make the perfect Prince Netflix documentary, or things I would like to see, or maybe even address some concerns as well. So let's go ahead, dive into reason number one. And reason number one is that the man and the artist is the central focus. I want to learn something, especially, something I didn't know. Hopefully something like that will come out in the documentary, or answer some long time questions I may have. What was the reason behind a lot of the mystique? Where, like two of my favorite artists, Marvin Gaye and John Lennon. To me, they are the most open book artists. And not to say that any other artists aren't open book, like they're not accessible to the public, whether it's in interviews or you don't have to guess what's going on in their music. It's spelled out for you, but not dumbed down. It really opens up and lets you in to either what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and you really get a stronger essence of who they are as people. So for me, those two artists, Marvin Gaye and John Lennon, best exemplify that. Where with Prince, now back when I was 15, 16, 17, in the 80s, and then you had Dirty Mind and Controversy in 1999, he didn't do a lot of interviews, and the few interviews, there was all this misdirection and cryptic answers and deflected answers, because, we do know that what he wanted everyone to focus on was the music. And that's fine and that's cool. But I think it didn't help, like I said, given the visual image, a lot of the, him trying to say, hey, listen to the music, the way he went about in explaining that, or trying to get you to focus on the music, looking back, a lot of times it didn't really come across. So, but over time, even in later life, there was still sometimes cryptic answers, but he did do more interviews. To me, I think he was more transparent, especially in probably one of his final interviews, the one that was in Ebony, that was done by Miles Marshall Lewis. To me, that was like my favorite, because he really was peeling back layers, even though he tried to kind of have that interview silenced, like as soon as it was published. But still, I think even as he got older, and then with his memoir, even though unfortunately we only got 50 pages of that, to me, I think he was starting to become more open and more transparent, and starting to let us get a look at the human being. I think he was starting to become a little bit more comfortable with that. So what I'm hoping that this documentary will do is, again, focus on him as a human being, him as a man, him as the artist, the motivation, the work ethic, some stories behind the music, you know. So, and like I said, even though there's been tons of books written about him and lots of things you can read, and you can, of course, obviously check out the music, again, hopefully I'm surprised and get something that I don't know or I didn't know, or things that I might have wondered about over the decades. Maybe fill in some blanks or give more context to certain events or key events or relationships with different people. You know, peel back those layers, and I hope to learn something, and that would help me enjoy the documentary more. So that's the first one. Number two is a complete, balanced narrative. In other words, don't shy away from certain controversies, but at the same time, don't sensationalize it. I don't want this to be like a TMZ piece or like a National Enquirer piece or, a shock and awe, in a negative light where it just focuses on the death and it takes key events and tries to connect dots in a way that it's like, oh, well, see, here, he did drugs here. Or, yeah, see, that led to his downfall there. And focus only on the downfall. Now, I know, again, with Ezra Edelman, you had a subject with, say, O.J. Made in America, where, yeah, you couldn't get around that part because that is part of the story. But what I did enjoy about most of the episodes that I saw was that it was peeling back the layers of O.J. Simpson, like what was making him tick, during his college days, during his pro football days, during all the endorsement days and his rising celebrity in Hollywood. How was that affecting him? What was his mindset? Did he feel a connection with his community and things of that nature, or why he didn't connect with his community and wanted to be part of this other world? That, again, led to a multitude of things going wrong in the end. So I thought that in that particular case, that was a fair and balanced assessment. So it didn't just sensationalize. It really helped you understand where things started and how things ended. And that's what I want to see with this. Have a narrative, of course. But, don't make it a gloss over piece. Make it, like I said, fair and balanced. So, like I said, don't be afraid to tackle some controversy. But at the same time, don't let that controversy be the be all and end all of the narrative of that. So from there, we're going to move to number three. And number three, multiple episodes to fairly cover his entire life and career. Now, I know a lot of, maybe not so much followers of my channel, but segments of the fan base are probably worried that they're just going to focus on Purple Rain because that's the breakout mainstream success, and that it's only going to interview just the revolution, or it's only going to just interview people in the 80s. Well, that's fine if you devote, say, episode 3 or episode 4 to Purple Rain in that era. Now, you're not going to escape it, because the weird thing about the fan base is that people cling to their favorite eras. And there are some of us that, yeah, we have favorite eras, but we came along as early as possible. Some have been there since For You. Myself, I've been there since Dirty Mind. But I have gone with him on the journey through every single album. And while, like I said, some albums, later albums, are great. Some I wasn't on board on, but it had like one or two or three good songs on it. I still bought it. I still supported it. I realized long ago you weren't going to get the same album from this dude twice. So if there was an album like, okay, well, I'm not really feeling that album, usually maybe 7 to 8, 9 times out of 10, that next one was the one. So, like, say, I loved musicology. Um, I like 3121, but I like it better. Just kind of over the last 2 or 3 years, I enjoy listening to it more than I did in 2006. But Planet Earth is an album I wasn't on board on. The Lotus Flower MPLS, which was after that, was, yeah, there was a bunch of stuff on that particular project that I enjoyed. Some of it not quite, but I enjoyed it much better than Planet Earth. And then 2010 I enjoyed. Artificial Age is one of my favorite Prince albums of the 21st century. Probably not the most favorite album of the 21st century. But, you know, I can understand the apprehension that this documentary is, you know, because they're going to try to go for a wide stream audience, those with memories of Purple Rain and only associating with that would be the selling point. Now, granted, if, you know, when the trailer does come out, yeah, you can utilize some of that to draw people in. But again, hopefully there'll be multiple episodes. Probably one of pre-Netflix, pre-streaming. Probably the only time I've seen that wasn't a Ken Burns documentary on PBS. The only time I've seen like a multi-episode format was the Beatles anthology. And I think because we've had such outstanding documentaries on Netflix or Hulu, you know, virtually all the streaming services have some type of documentary that is, you know, multi-episodic, that you get more time to concentrate on whatever the narrative is that director's trying to convey. And you get the beginning, middle, and end, and everything is kind of given its fair and balanced context in those documentaries. So I'm hoping that it's a, you know, like a 7, 8, 9 you know, episode, 12 episodes at the most, documentary. I would be probably slightly disappointed if, you know, like the Get Back documentary was perfect. They were, each one was about 2 hours long, I think. More than that, maybe 2 or 3. I forget how long each episode was, but they were like, I think you ended up with like an 8-hour documentary by the time that thing ended, and there's still like a lot of stuff on the cutting room floor still. But in Prince's case, I would probably be disappointed, because with the thing with the Get Back, that was an entire month of the Beatles working on what ended up being Let It Be. And with Prince, those 3, like I said, that could be on Purple Rain by itself, almost, you know, for somebody to do an expanded thing like that. But yeah, I would want like a 12 episode format. You know, again, maybe hour and a half, 2 hours each episode, to really cover every aspect of his career. And of course, that middle section will probably be Purple Rain to Sign of the Times, or even Lovesexy, in that, you know, maybe episodes 3 and 4. But like I said, there's still a lot of career left, you know, before Purple Rain and even after. So I'm hoping each era, or each significant era, gets its time to shine, you know. And especially too, the whole name change, the whole slave period, the whole symbol era. Um, that should be a good 2 hours or 2 episodes in of itself. Maybe the first episode focusing on the struggle, and then have that following episode focus on the journey to emancipation, and then some of the ripple effect or the fallout or the step up or the step down from there. And then again, still have 4 or 5 episodes left to go. So who knows? Hopefully that will be, a multi-episode documentary. So moving to number 4. Number 4, interviews relative to their access to Prince during his lifetime, but being okay for, say, someone that was only around in the 80s, that was significant, that could provide some context at the end when it kind of when they kind of recap, or unfortunately if they have to discuss the end, then to get perspective on what they were personally thinking based on how they knew him, if they managed to stay in touch in the years since the 80s all the way up until the end, or if they had a falling out in the 80s or in the 90s, and maybe some observations that they may have a recap and kind of provide some commentary or provide something closure, whatever the narrative is going to lead to for that. But like I said, there's those in the fan base that probably feel that they're going to discuss something in 2022 with somebody that was only around up until 1989, or they left the camp in 1995, that again, for the sake of name recognition or to appeal to a certain demographic of the fan base, again, I'm hoping that this documentary is fair and balanced and it covers the entire journey, but allowing people that were actually witness to certain things going on during their tenure with either working with Prince or being in a relationship or whatever the situation is, employer-employee relationship or band member relationship, have those people discuss things as they witness them. And hopefully, that would bring, a lot of strength to the narrative. It would help the narrative flow to have those eyewitness accounts. And then if you need to connect some dots, then here's somebody from 1985 commenting on 1985. And then here's somebody from 2012 commenting on something from 2012. And it's kind of like, those two thought the same thing. So I wonder if there's any truth to that. And maybe if, like I said, don't want this to become like an investigative piece. But like I said, it just depends on the narrative. And again, if you're connecting dots, whether, never mind the sensationalism, but just what made him tick as an artist to connect certain dots. Oh, he was consistent from here to here. Or here was a certain drive here, but something changed him to where, for better or for worse, something changed. And you have this person to kind of eyewitness that change. And like I said, if you want to connect dots, if there's similarities or differences between somebody from 1985 versus somebody from 2012, and then there you have it. So hopefully, like I said, you won't see Lisa and Wendy like, oh yeah, well, I think in 2014 he was thinking this, but he really didn't call us on the phone. We haven't talked to him on the phone since 2009, something like that, so hopefully we won't see a lot of that. But number 5, and this will be the final thing that would make the perfect Prince documentary is the music. Again, you can focus on images, you can focus on the private life, and I'm sure people that aren't deep cut Prince fans, they'll come in just on that. Say if they're casual fans or people that haven't paid attention to Prince since the 80s or the 90s, and they're drawn into, because it's like, oh, well, Prince is no longer here, then what happened? Well, maybe this documentary will focus on, will explain what really happened. And again, the sensationalism, the girlfriends, the wives, the band members. But really at its front and center, in addition to the man and the artist, the music. Focus on the music. And I mean every single facet. The drive to get to For You. Because that first album was over budget and didn't sell as well. Then the pressure to create a hit with the second album. Then to take that creative risk with Dirty Mind. Then to do something like Controversy. Then 1999, that album was struggling. It was a hit. Eventually, Little Red Corvette helped it cross over, but that album was a struggle. And then to gamble to do a major motion picture, which there's going to be a Patreon exclusive video that I'm going to work on titled "What If Purple Rain Flopped?" Because that was a gamble, and like I said, there's a lot of people that hate on Purple Rain because of its success. And again, you're thinking too linear. If you take that piece out, if Purple Rain flopped, then Warner Brothers isn't going to gamble on this dude anymore. They're not going to, or they're going to pressure him into a hit. You wouldn't have gotten Around the World in a Day, or if you did, it would be a different album than what we're used to hearing. So, you got to deal with that success, because even for him, that success gave him the freedom to be in the position to get to your favorite era, to have the millions to build a Paisley Park complex in the first place. To have that success really kind of frightened Prince to the magnitude like, well, I'm going to sabotage that success by creating Around the World in a Day, which then leads to Parade, which leads to Sign of the Times. And each album springboards to the next album. Like I said, for me, I'm there for the journey. Yeah, it's cool to reminisce about being 15 listening to Dirty Mind. It's cool to reminisce about being 15 listening to Controversy. It's cool to reminisce about being 16 listening to 1999. It's cool to reminisce about that, but trust me, I don't want to go back to those days. They were, there were some good days and there were some bad days, but as John Lennon says, good to be older. So I was there for the journey. So it's kind of, where, okay, yeah, I liked Graffiti Bridge as an album. Was disappointed in the movie. But Here Comes Diamonds and Pearls. That was a little too commercial for me, but I still enjoyed it. I still played the heck out of it when it was out. The Symbol period from 93 to 95, that's probably my second favorite era next to the 80s. So, the documentary should focus on those things and keep the music front and center. And I think that, and hopefully if they do it right, that music can also help tell the story, because as Prince was so proud to say, if you wanted to get to know him, listen to the music. And there are some revealing things in a lot of the songs. So hopefully those songs are used to push the narrative forward as well. So if you have, say, a certain inspiration speaking about, say, their time together, and since unfortunately we don't have Prince to give his side of it, or since he never got to finish writing that autobiography, well, then you have the songs, you have the music to push that narrative. Let that music tell that narrative. So those are the 5 things that I think should make a great Prince Netflix documentary. But what do you think? Do you think do you have some of those same expectations? What are some of your apprehensions about the documentary? Do you think it should still come out despite the Prince estate being sort of against it? But there's nothing they could do to stop it because the contracts have been signed, the money has been spent. What do you think? Leave me a comment and let me know your thoughts. And from there, we're going to move on to, and we're bringing this back from the old Amari Purple Talk days. We're bringing back the artist spotlight, and that will be a segment where we just highlight an associated artist, associated act, protege, whatever you want to call it, and talk about that artist. And so today, my focus is going to be on Jill Jones. One of my first memories of just kind of hearing the name, it goes all the way back to Tina Marie's It Must Be Magic album. And there's a song on that album called The Battle of Cradle and Rob and Me. But if you look at the liner notes of that album, you see background vocals by JJ. But you also see in the songwriting credits, a co-writing song credit for that song, The Battle of Cradle Rob and Me. And it's a catchy tune. I like that album. It was probably the actual first Tina Marie album that I owned. The one that made me become a fan was Irons in the Fire, and actually became a fan of Tina Marie and Prince the same day, thanks to a friend of mine that brought Dirty Mind and Irons in the Fire over to use my component set to make a dub, make a cassette out of. So that was the It Must Be Magic album was the one that I actually went out and got myself. And yeah, like I said, I enjoyed it. Bought it off the strength of Square Biz, but I digress. But reading the liner notes, then it was like, okay, well, JJ, okay, okay. I was always fascinated, like, who were the background singers? What did the background singers look like? Who were the musicians? What kind of what kind of instruments are they playing on those things? So, I was a liner note junkie. So fast forward to the 1999 album and reading the liner notes on that, then I see the name JJ pop up on those as well. And I'm like, well, what if that's the same person? Because usually if you read enough liner notes, you do see some reoccurring people, like as far as musicians, like with Stevie Wonder. Nathan East is a famous session player. You see him on Stevie Wonder albums, and also kind of the Jacksons, like with Destiny and Triumph on those albums. So I'm seeing the name, I'm trying to connect the dots, like, is that the same person? Oh, that's cool. So she worked with Tina Marie, now she's working with Prince. Cool, that'll work. And lo and behold, come to find out, yeah, that's the same person. And I think the icing on, or the cherry on top, was the appearance in the 1999 video. And I was like, okay, yeah, all right, I'm in, I'm sold 100%. And then you fast forward to the appearance in the Purple Rain film, and yeah, it's kind of messed up how her character was. I felt bad for her character. I mean, I get the story of Purple Rain. I get why the main characters, who they are and why they are, and all of that stuff. But I felt like really sorry for her in that deal because like it's like she just couldn't catch a break with Prince in that film. But it was cool that she was part of the Prince camp now. And I guess I can't remember if there were ever rumors about her working on an album. Like I said, you see a lot in the background. Like I said, a lot of Prince albums. There's appearances on The Glamorous Life. We know that she provided offstage background vocals for Vanity 6. So she was definitely a key player in, you know, that Prince era, that, you know, back when things were magical and mysterious, and, you know, it was, you know, really cool in those days. But fast forward to about 1987, like right around the summer 1987, and it was myself and, of course, you've heard him on the show quite a few times, the artist known as Alex B. Was co-songwriter of mine and keyboard player in my group Chaotic B. You know, we used to just like dissect records, you know, and we always went for like the obscure kind of records. You know, we always listened to the stuff that was hits, obviously. But to kind of like have a leg up creatively, you know, we listened to B-sides of things, or, you know, we would find a group or a record by a group that, you know, maybe nobody else was hip to, but it was something on it that we liked. Like, oh, okay, well, I like how they're playing guitar on that. So, you know, I wonder if I can do something different or improve on it or somehow be influenced by it. So, you know, we were always getting those. Remember earlier that year, I remember he got the Madhouse album on vinyl. And, you know, we didn't know. We just saw, you know, it had Paisley Park label on it. But it was like all this jazz. And it was like, okay, well, that's cool. You know, back then we thought we were probably the only ones that knew about it. Thank God you know, a lot of people love the Madhouse stuff. But fast forward to that summer, you know, we run across her debut album. And I remember seeing it was on CD, but back then CDs were ridiculously priced. And as much, I think, let's see, no, because I didn't even have a CD player till like Christmas or something like that year. So, but it was like, oh, these CDs are so expensive when, you know, you could get the cassette. And by then we had kind of phased out vinyl, you know, in favor of cassettes anyway. But that's how I ended up with this. I did have the CD at one point. I don't have it anymore. Hoping to track a copy down. But eventually I'm going to get a vinyl edition of this. But I know myself, Alex B, we were very elated that she dropped an album. And I mean, the songs on it, and again, reading the liner notes, I think what was different from this, as opposed to, say, The Time, as even some of the Sheila E. stuff, these were actual, you know, the liner notes said, you know, co-written Prince and Jill Jones. We thought she had a hand in it, at least with the lyrics anyway. Come to find out that, you know, it was Prince that did everything, as we discovered bootlegs later. But I tell you, this was one of those personal albums where, like I said, it wasn't on the radio a lot. I know when I moved to California, like I think For Love was getting some radio play, and that was cool. But like I said before, like that summer of '87, you know, it felt like an album that just belonged to me. You know, nobody else knew about it. Nobody else really wanted to know about it. So it was cool to have that. And like I said, I love the songs. I love the lyrics to a lot of the songs. And like I said, just happy that she was getting her own album. Now the downside, you can kind of tell that this was an album that kind of came out a little too late. Like if this dropped in 85, probably 86 even, I think this would have been a serious hit, like a major hit, like top 10, even top 20, maybe even top 10, whether it's R&B or pop. I think this would have, but by late 86 into 87, you had where hip hop was grabbing a stronghold on music. You also had New Jack Swing to kind of come in, and it was kind of slowly pushing that what we kind of knew was the Minneapolis sound. It was kind of pushing that out, and I think the only people, I mean, Prince was always in a lane by himself, so it didn't matter. Of course, he still had hits, even though maybe the albums themselves, even though they were successful, they didn't get past 1 million in sales, or barely 2 million in sales. But that New Jack Swing and hip hop was kind of pushing that Minneapolis sound out the way. I think the only ones out of Minneapolis that really honestly survived it was Jam and Lewis. Maybe Andre Simone because he was producing Jody Watley at the time. But I think everybody else, it was one of those things where the releases were just very personal if you were a deep cut Prince fan. Like I said, this is a very personal album for me. Like I said, not too many people knew about it, or it was cool to, talk to a music fan about it, where other band members, you would be hip to this album, and it was cool to discuss it with them. And it's kind of regrettable that we didn't get a follow-up to this record as well. Of course, there's been some drama. It was drama to get the first one out. Like, they started recording this, 84, 1984, and it didn't come out till 1987 because it was kind of like on again, off again, which was kind of synonymous with their relationship and stuff. So, unfortunately, circumstances led to there not being a follow-up album. But she has released albums kind of over the last maybe decade, almost 2 decades now. I think they're still on streaming, so you should be able to check those out. There's one in particular called 2 that was getting some buzz. It's different. So if you're going in expecting to hear Prince-like sounds, no, she's doing her own thing. Which is cool. That's her as an artist. She was expressing herself as an artist. Kind of the last 2 things, there was a couple of singles that were released. One immediately, or a little after Prince had passed, called "I Miss You," and that's a very beautiful song. That's I've heard it once because I bought the download on Apple, and then I saw the video, and it's moving because I remember that, and then Morris Day had a tribute song as well. So those things were really they were beautiful, but they were hard to listen to. But that is a beautiful track. If you haven't heard it, check it out. One of the last singles that she's put out is called "Not Another Love Song," and that's a beautiful one too. It kind of gives me like Tina Marie ballad vibes in it, which I enjoy. But that's another one to check out. So just because they're not working, fully 100% in the Prince camp, or if they're not capitalizing 100% off of the Prince sound, they're expressing themselves as artists. We'll get into another episode like F Deluxe, how that album was, to me, was the family but mature. So you didn't go back to the same sounds from 1985. They sound like the family now, 2011 when that came out. But yeah, I know she's involved in a lot of different business ventures. A lot of those ventures aren't necessarily tied to music per se, but definitely an artist. Check out stuff post Prince. Like I said, check out background vocals on a lot of the classic Minneapolis sound albums. Also the classic Tina Marie album, or just pick up a copy of It Must Be Magic and check her out. And peace to her. Peace to her cat. I know the cat has been in ill health, and if you're a pet owner, that's family kind of. And so peace to her. Glad we're dedicating this segment of the show to her, and by all means, like I said, check it out. Hopefully one day we'll get to see a re-release of this, along with some of the extended mixes. So hopefully we'll see that from the estate one day, and we can go out and support Jill Jones and the album. So Jill Jones, thanks for all the music, and we miss you on Twitter or X or whatever that mess they call it. But by all means, find her on other social media platforms. And like I said, again, thanks for everything. So from there, we're going to move on to the album Spotlight. And with that segment, we're just going to take a particular, whether it's a Prince album or a protege act or someone related to the Minneapolis sound, like say like an Alexander O'Neal or SOS Band or Jody Watley. We'll focus on those albums for a little bit. But today I wanted to kind of expand more on Diamonds and Pearls, the remastered edition. So I did a video for YouTube, kind of giving my initial thoughts of that album on streaming. I know it's kind of weird that they did it so early. I mean, it's cool for us as fans to get it so early, but I guess they must have look at how many people pre-ordered the box set. So yeah, let's just go ahead and just dump the album on streaming in the Dolby Atmos version. Now I don't have anything Dolby Atmos. It's a little out of my price range, but who knows? One of these days I'll get one. So it'll be nice to have stuff like this, because I've got like some of the Beatles stuff where it has the Blu-ray and it has like the 5.1 mixes or the Dolby Atmos mixes. And like I said, I don't have anything to play it on, or speakers that would be worthy of that. I mean, I can pop it in a Blu-ray player, but sound, it'll be what it'll be. But hopefully one day, but at least I'll have this stuff, so whenever the time comes, then I'll have something to actually play in that particular case. But like I said, listening to it, at first I couldn't really tell a significant difference, especially with the first maybe 2 or 3 songs on it. I didn't like a loudness factor. I didn't notice a difference or anything. But it wasn't until I got to Cream, and then maybe most of the songs after that, especially kind of towards the end, from Jughead all the way to Live for Love, that I was beginning to notice a significant difference in the range. It's a wider range in sound. There are certain nuances that are more prominent, whether it's a layered vocal or background vocal, maybe some percussion or a guitar part or a bass part. Like I said, the surprise in that was Jughead, because it's a song that I think a lot of us kind of skip over. But I found myself really, really enjoying the groove of that more, because it's like, instead of just drums, bass, I hear everything. It's the mix is expanded somewhat to where you get all the little nuances with the instruments that kind of like it sweetens the groove quite a bit. And it's like, wow, I like this as a groove. Why don't I like this as a song? But it's occurred to me because of what I'm hearing instrumentally and what I now know from reading an interview with Tony M, his approach to his rap vocal. He was influenced by Chuck D. And you can kind of tell there's that tone. It's like, Daddy Pop, lead the band. And you can kind of hear Chuck D doing something like that. Bass, how low can you go? Kind of that kind of tone in the voice. But the music, because it's a dance song, it's like, well, okay, who else had a big hit, with dance songs? And I can point to two. One being, I can't think of the name of the group, but they in the Spike Lee movie, School Days, the Butt. It was a go-go band. Folks, just leave me a comment, remind me who they are, that band. But you had that song. And then you also had Humpty Dance with Digital Underground. And I was thinking like, well, this would work better if you had like maybe if you had a Shock G, or if they got one of the other Game Boys in the group to kind of do like a Shock G, Humpty Hump type vocal. Maybe not necessarily losing my words, imitate Shock G or Humpty Hump, but just kind of have that tone, maybe that softer tone, that comedic tone. Because it sounds like, yeah, Public Enemy's doing a dance song, which would be cool, but you would have to have Flavor Flav lead the rap. You wouldn't have Chuck D doing that. You would have, and there's the thing, if they could have gotten like a Flavor Flav to rap that part, I think it would have gone over better. It would have worked much better as a song. But there's other tracks, Insatiable. I've also done a review on the Vault early take of Insatiable and how I love everything that goes on in that. Yeah, I can see why they made the editing choices that they made in the final mix for the album version. But again, listening to the album version with the remaster, again, there's that range and it brings out certain nuances with certain instruments that you have, it gives you more of an emotional connection where the vocals and the instruments are better separated, to where I feel like I have more of an emotional connection to the song now than I did. I mean, I always liked it as a ballad. I always called it like an Adore class ballad. I used to, after Adore, would measure every Prince ballad against that, and if it stands up to me and to my ears, then it's worthy as a ballad. And that was one. I really enjoyed that. And I liked with the final mix of that, and I guess with the production instincts, you had a lot of Keith Sweat that was being played in that period. And it kind of lends itself with that New Jack Swing versus the early take where you hear it's more Marvin Gaye in that early take. But when you get to the final mix, it's everything's in place to where it competes with whatever Keith Sweat was doing on the radio at that point. So, I get that, but I can hear that a lot better with the remaster. And it's pretty much consistent with everything else on that album. It's like the range, the separation between vocals or background vocals, layered vocals by Prince, the instruments, better separation with the drums. Versus the other instruments, so the drums aren't as overwhelming anymore. You really get not only Michael Bland's power drumming, but you also get a lot of the finesse licks that he does as well. You can hear those a lot better now. So that's it in a nutshell with Diamonds and Pearls, the remaster version. I'm going to do a review of the remastered CD when I get the box set at some point. So look forward to hearing that soon. But yeah, I enjoy it. I'm beginning to enjoy it a little more now than I did back in 1991, but I played it a lot back in 1991 too. It's not one of my favorite Prince albums per se, but again, that's what I'm going back to that. I was there for the journey. So it's like, while it wasn't my absolute favorite Prince album, there were a lot of things that I enjoy on it. And like I said, I played it a lot in 91 going into 92. So I don't know. So I'm looking forward to hearing that. Looking forward to the remaster. Looking forward to the vault tracks, or hearing the rest of the vault tracks. But what do you think? Are you still excited? Have you had a chance to hear the remaster? What are your thoughts on it? Did you own the original CD? And how do you compare the two? I don't know. Maybe I'll do a comparison video. The streaming version versus the original CD, and have that be a Patreon exclusive. I'll think about that and work on that soon. But other than that, leave me a comment and let me know your thoughts. And that brings us to the final segment of this episode. And what we used to call it back in the Amari Purple Talk days was the Prince wish list. Here we're calling it the Prince Estate wish list. And basically what it is, it's an album, a box set, a video, anything that we would like to see the estate endorse along those lines. You know, music or video that we would like to own, like a Blu-ray of a live concert, or a Blu-ray of, say, all of his music videos, live albums, certain legendary albums that are in the vault, or you name it. So that's the Prince Estate wish list. And this week, this episode, it will be the Triple Threat Tour CD Blu-ray set, or separate standalone releases for each one, a la the Hendrix Estate. So the Triple Threat Tour, although it was never officially called that, that was just kind of a nickname with either the press, maybe that's how the fan base remembers it. It was the tour in support of the 1999 album. And the reason it was the triple threat, because you had Vanity 6 and The Time as the opening act for that. And that was a tour, unfortunately, I did not get to see. I've listened to bootleg footage, seen some bootleg footage. It's good we have the DVD of Prince's show. I think it's in Houston, that one. But it's good to have an official copy of that now. But I would like to see like a Blu-ray that would have, like, maybe not that particular show, but a different show, but also include the Vanity 6 set and include the Time set as well, and have it be a CD. You know, with the CD, maybe disc 1 is the Vanity 6 set, disc 2 is the Time set, disc 3 is Prince's set, booklet with liner notes. It's kind of hard to do. I know that there have been things like where Bob Dylan has put out like the complete Rolling Thunder tour, and I forget how many CDs and how much that costs. I know Prince fans would like to see the equivalent of that, especially with something like the Triple Threat tour. But again, I don't know how cost effective that would really be, how many people could afford to buy that. I know that would be something that I would struggle with. I don't think I would be able to afford anything like that. But you know, but to have like with the Hendrix Estate, they just release a single show Most of the time it's just the CD. Maybe they don't have footage of that particular show, just the audio. But there are things like the Live at Berkeley. Of course, there's Woodstock. Trying to think what else is there. There's Live in Maui. That's another one where they have footage. Of course, that one, it's more of a documentary that has a whole lot of live footage in addition to the live CD set. So I could see something similar going on with the Triple Threat Tour, where you could have either a standalone CD or a standalone or a standalone Blu-ray, or you could just sell it as a bundle as well. And like I said, have a booklet complete with liner notes, historical notes, lots of photographs included. And I think that would, you don't have to wait till they re-release the 1999 box set, which I'm sure they're going to do. I know there's some confusion about why it's out of print. It's out of print because Warner Brothers can't make any more of those because they no longer license those master recordings. Since 2021, those master recordings have been licensed to Sony. So at some point, and I'm assuming they have a plan, but I'm assuming we're going to have to get through Diamonds and Pearls. We have to get through the inevitable Purple Rain 40th anniversary. I'm sure later they'll focus on a later era box set or release. Maybe some, like I said, you could put something like this in between box sets. So if you have a later era box set, and you don't do another one, say for maybe one of the classic era sets, then this is something that you could release like in between time. You can just have it, and like I said, it's standalone, so it's a reasonable price point. Whether you bundle it with the CD and Blu-ray, or if you sell CD, Blu-ray separately, it's still at a price point that won't break a lot of the Prince fan base, or you don't have to feel pressure to spend hundreds of dollars or $100. This is something you could spend 20, 30, excuse me, on. Like I said, especially if it's a bundle, it's a reasonable price point to do. And like I said, it'll whet the appetite. I know people get tired of, I always focus on the 80s, but your era will get its representation within your lifetime, we hope. A lot of us first generation fans, we're starting. We haven't begun to age out of the market yet, but we're kind of getting there. So this would be something to have. I think, like I said, you can release this in between. If they say do a Love Symbol box set, and then you can release this as a little standalone. And then whatever they decide to do next, if they want to focus on, say, Musicology or 3121 and do a box set on that, do that. Or have a Parade box set and then do, say, Artificial Age box set. Then, like I said, just do this as a little standalone. I think, like I said, I think it'll work. It's, excuse me, it's something that I would definitely love to have. For sure. But what do you think? What is, are you a fan of that era? Like I said, I missed out on that, but the 1999 era, just for the memories of being 16, 17, you had the What Time Is It album, which was probably the best time album, period. And to experience that live, there's a lot of love for the Vanity 6 album. So to see them finally get some representation in some of these releases would be absolutely fantastic. So do you share that thought? What's a good idea for a something that you want me to cover in the next Prince Estate wish list. Leave me a comment and let me know your thoughts. And that is going to end this episode of the Purple Notes Unveiled podcast. Again, thanks for tuning in. If you're a long-time listener of Amari Communications, whether it's Patreon or YouTube, welcome back. If you're a first-time listener, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that you give you incentive to become a Patreon supporter. Get your name shouted out in the credits at the end. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. And until the next episode, create your day and create your life. Peace.